wanted to hear was we want to hear about different job opportunities that are available. If they, if they do the emergency or the EMT course, or if there's other emergency type careers that they can get into, and then what training it takes, like how long, how do they get, find out about the training and things like that, and what it takes to get certified. And other than that, what do you guys think? What else would our kids need to know?
That's great.
Okay. So we'll let you take it away, and
Okay.
maybe we'll
Well,
ask questions.
obviously it's easier when there's kids to ask questions, because they do come up with some really good questions when I do this. I do this presentation sometimes in the high schools, junior high. So it is something that I'm kind of used to. As far as job opportunities, it's kind of a catch-22, because there's most of the jobs in the EMS field in rural Utah and rural across the entire country really is mostly volunteer. So you're on a schedule that you're on call, and then you respond usually from home or your other job or whatever, whenever a call comes in. And so the pay isn't that great because of that. The other side of it is that in order to work in EMS generally in the urban areas, you also have to be firefighter certified as well. So there's some issues with that, but there are agencies that run strictly EMS separately from the fire departments. We happen to be one of those. We have really no correlation with our fire departments at all. So it makes it so that we can really focus on the EMS, the medical side of things that we do. In addition to running on the ambulance, there are other job opportunities that are available. We do have EMTs that are working in the clinics, and some in the ER, actually, as ER technicians, triage technicians, things like that. So there are some opportunities available that way as well. So there is a chance to actually do this as a living. Right now in Roosevelt, we have 6 full-time positions in addition to the 2 administrative positions that we have. So I'm hoping in the near future to expand that a little bit. I would really like to get at least 2 more full-time positions. So that gives us the opportunity to provide a better service. We are extremely busy right now, and have been for the last 2 or 3 years, actually. We started to see a bump in our call volume just before COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, we've just exploded. And some of it is COVID related, but a lot of it isn't. It's actually people are just sicker. We have more people in the area. There has been an influx in population a little bit. And so we just have seen us get extremely busy. So last year we broke records right and left. We settled in at about 1,800 calls for last year. This year we're way far ahead of that. And we run on a fiscal year, which means we start from July 1st to June 30th. So We're about halfway through our fiscal year this year, and we're looking already. We're probably going to come in close to about 2,000 calls this year. So for us to increase 200 a year is big. It's really hard, and it drains us a lot. So as far as the training involved, there's actually 4 levels of certification that the state of Utah and National Registry recognize as the levels, if you will, of certification. So they can start as an emergency medical responder, which is the first one. That is recognized by the state of Utah, but it does not allow you to work on an ambulance in the state of Utah. So EMR is mostly people who are going to be involved as first responder for their company or something like that. There are some industries and things that have first response teams that they would get involved with and be able to do with that. The EMR course is about 60 class hours, and it runs basically for those that need it. We don't actually run an EMR program anywhere in the basin that I'm aware of. So the next level, and the level that actually allows you to run on an ambulance, is EMT. The EMT course currently is about 200 class hours. And then you also have 10 additional hours, a minimum of 10 additional hours as a clinical experience, meaning you run as a student on either the ambulance or working in the emergency room. It's very, very good experience. It's usually something that's very valuable as far as learning how to do things and what happens and that kind of thing. In addition to the classroom hours, there is 2 levels of testing. We're actually doing a test tonight for our class that's just wrapped up. Our last class night was Monday, and they are actually doing a hands-on skills test tonight. And then they will, after that, have to go and sit for the National Registry cognitive exam, which is a computer written test that goes on at the Pearson View testing sites. So they do have to leave the area to do that. We don't have a Pearson View approved site here in the basin either. So they would do that. That allows them to get started on the ambulance, and that's where everybody does start. It gives you a good foundation for what we do, and most importantly, teaches you patient assessment, and that's where we really do the majority of our work, is in assessing patients, figuring out what the problem is, and then we can treat and take care of some specific things, but generally it's assess them and treat them enough to get them to the hospital. There are a couple of exceptions to that. Basically, the patients who are in cardiac arrest, where we're doing CPR on them, the studies have all shown us and everything that it's actually better to not transport them unless we get a pulse back. So we will actually stay on scene and continue resuscitation efforts for oftentimes up to 45 to 60 minutes without transporting those patients unless we get something, some type of a result. If we do get a result, then obviously we transport as rapidly as we can, but the majority of those, it's better for us to stay there and do the work. We do everything that they would do in the emergency room, And so it just makes it better for the patient for us to do that. That's sometimes hard for some families and some folks to recognize, is that we can literally do everything that the ER does. And the studies have shown us that there's about it doubles the survival rates if we do that. So that's a good caveat to throw out there. It's something that we've had to really do a lot of education on, public education, to make sure that people understand that. So the next level that we have is called an advanced EMT. And that is another about 120 to 130 classroom hours, and another 10 to 15 clinical hour times that you would spend working on that. Advanced EMTs are able to use a few more medications. They do things like start IVs and other more invasive type things that we can do. And they do have a bigger realm of medications and things that they can use. We really encourage most of our people to get to the advanced level in order to stay with us and work with us. But we do have several that opt to just stay at the EMT level. They don't want that extra responsibility, and that's fine. That works. We need the EMTs as well. So the next level, and it's quite a leap to go to the paramedic level. The paramedic level is basically a 2-year college program. It requires somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,250 to 1,300 additional class hours. You have to already be certified as an EMT in order to get into a paramedic program. And then in addition to that, there's about 400 to 600 hours of clinical experience working in various clinic settings, such as pediatric ERs, the high volume emergency rooms, such as IMC, McKay-D, Ogden Regional. Some of those are the areas that we are sending students right now. We also do rotations in the OR, where we learn to intubate patients and control their airways and things like that. There's rotations in labor and delivery, where we learn to really resuscitate babies and things like that. There's a psych rotation that you have to do. There's a rotation in the burn unit that we get to do. I say get to do. That was a very challenging one for me. Those are some of the really serious things that you deal with that have long lasting effects. So that one was kind of a challenge for me. The psych unit was a challenge for me, just because of some of the things that actually happened in there that I didn't feel like were necessarily, in an emergence standpoint, not handled the best they could have possibly been, because they're not used to dealing with those types of situations. We actually had somebody go into cardiac arrest in the psych unit, and it didn't go as smoothly as it should have. So that was kind of a challenge, but at the same time, they are challenges, but they're very rewarding when you get to participate in those things and do that. It's really a good thing in the long run. So that one again, after your clinical hours, you do another roughly 500 hours of field rides, where you're actually working with paramedic crews, somewhere that's busier than we are, uh, they they really put you through the ringer on that. And so by the time you're done, you leave the paramedic program fully capable and competent and confident in your skills and what you need to do out there. We don't, unfortunately, have the time in the EMT and AEMT programs to get people to that level. We give you the basic, the bare minimum skill set that you need to go out and practice and become a good EMT or a good advanced EMT. And it does take some time and practice to be able to do that. So we are constantly running classes and that kind of thing. We actually teach the EMT and advanced EMT courses here, and we've been able to produce some really good EMTs using those programs. So that's the levels of training that are involved and that kind of thing. I would like to have some questions and things, but
I actually have a couple questions.
okay.
Um, besides the coursework, do students need to have any other additional prerequisites? Do they need to have like a background check? Do they need to be taking some courses in high school to prepare them? What are some prerequisites students would need if they wanted to go into become an EMT?
Okay, the only prerequisite that's actually required is a CPR class to get into the program. They do complete background checks on all of the students. They do that early on, and so they would have to submit to that. But some things that I recommend, I would really recommend people do medical terminology, any type of physiology classes that they can get a hold of in high school would be very beneficial, and anything that they could do to improve their math skills would really help. Um, we utilize a lot of math in taking care of patients and dealing with that, all the way from we have to convert weights from pounds to kilograms, but we have to figure drug dosages based on those weights and things like that. So math is a really strong thing to have. The other thing I would really encourage, and I know everybody hates this, but English and writing are very important. In fact, I'm sitting here right now. As this was starting, I was working on a report from a run that we had earlier today. And we have to, at the very end, the last thing we do in these reports is write a narrative, which is basically a story of what happened, what we found when we got there, where we found the patient, what condition, what positions, those types of things, and then what we do from the point that we met that patient until we drop them off at the ER. And I got to tell you, there there is something a lot to be said for things like grammar, correct spelling, those types of things, because it can be really important when it comes to if we go to court over anything. Those types of things are vitally important. So those are probably my biggest recommendations. But again, the only real prerequisite is CPR.
So I have two questions. With the CPR, would they do that? Would they just contact the hospital and do a training course like with you on CPR? Or would they do that through UB Tech?
Either
Or-
one.
Okay.
UB Tech runs CPR programs for their MA programs, for the CNA program, the nursing program, all of those. And then we also offer that through the hospital. So either one of those would be good contacts. And I'm actually the training center coordinator for American Heart on the CPR courses. So if they want to contact me, they can do that.
Okay. And is there an age requirement? Like, is 18 okay, or do they have to be 21 or?
You have to be, for the CPR classes, there really isn't an age limit, but for EMT course, yes, there is. You have to be 18 in order to receive a certification or a licensure.
Okay.
There's actually two things involved there. You get certified through the National Registry of EMTs. And then in order to work in the state of Utah as an EMT, you have to get a license as an EMT in Utah. So you go through National Registry first, and then the state, it's basically filling out an application that kind of runs in congruency with the program. So that's the requirements for that. That is an 18-year-old thing before they will issue a license. However, you can start the training and things before that. We currently have two people in our EMT class right now that are not 18 yet, and they've completed all of the course and everything. They will just have excuse me, have to wait for just a little while in order to be able to do their national registry testing and become licensed. But they've done all of the work. They've completed the course and everything. They just have to wait. I think one of them is only like a month. The other one is 6 or 8 weeks, something like that. So
Do they have to have a high school diploma and or GED? I
um,
mean, like, well, I say and or, that's not the correct term, but I mean, like, would you accept a GED or does it have to be a high school diploma?
yes, we do accept the GED. Um, we really recommend a high school diploma, obviously, but we've actually got two EMTs that I'm aware of that only have their GEDs, and so
But they'd have to have one or the other, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And what is the starting pay for an EMT? I know we'll have students that ask that.
Yeah, starting right now, we're starting our EMTs at $14 an hour, which is it's actually closer. It's 16 because they're on call. They actually get $2 an hour to be on call, and then an additional $14 an hour while they're actually running. So the time that they're actually working on the ambulance is 16 hours or $16 an hour, because we don't differentiate between just on call time and run time. Um, so they're getting paid the call time when they're actually working too. So advanced EMT is we start them at 16, and then the paramedic level is 18. And again, the $2 call pay on top of that.
So here's the fun question. What do you love most about your job?
Honestly, helping people, and that I got to say that's kind of a cop out, because everybody that comes into our EMT class will say that. Um, but there's only a few that really mean it, and when they find out what we do, as far as everybody envisions this trauma life in the ER type of scenario, that that's all we do every day, and that's not the case. Those calls do happen. I mean, we do get the blood and guts and the car crashes, and yes, I've seen people lose arms and legs and things like that. But those are very few and far between. The majority of our calls are helping pick grandma up off the floor and put her back to bed, and those types of things. And a lot of it isn't as glamorous as the car crashes on the highway and things like that. So um, my thing is the personal attachment that I get with people and helping them. When you see, like, for instance, the patient today was really in a bad way when we got there, was struggling pretty good, and through some few things that we did and that kind of thing, by the time got them to the hospital, they were much more relaxed, they were feeling better, they had calmed down. It's just a good feeling because you see yourself making a difference for that patient right now, and that's honestly, that's what it's all about. The patients that I have one individual that I see every year at our hospital golf tournament that we actually did CPR on and saved him, and he's gone back to a normal life and everything is great. And we talk every time we see each other. We talk, and we're just good friends now. And I honestly had never met the man until I was beating on his chest. So um, those kind of things, that's what keeps me doing this.
Awesome. Dan, do you have any other questions that you think the students would be asking if they were here?
I know they would have some silly questions, but I can't think of anything right now.
Yeah.
They are very good at coming up with silly questions, and I love it. I do. I I it's fun to watch teachers when the kids ask the silliest thing that they can possibly come up with. But because the teachers all go like, "Oh no, why did they do that?" But honestly, it gives you a chance to talk about what we really do, and it's fun to answer those questions. It really is. So I don't mind those at all. I do really well with that. So
Yeah. I find them kind of entertaining too.
Well, I was
Well,
just thinking that they probably would ask if it's legal for you to speed in the ambulance,
okay,
and run red lights and some questions like that.
okay. So in certain situations, it is. We honestly try not to do that because it is risky for us. We really, running lights and sirens is not the safest thing that we should be doing. But we can at times. Our actual policy says that we can exceed the speed limit by 15 miles an hour if the road conditions and things are such that we can do that safely. We have policies actually that pertain to running red lights. Um, we can do that in emergent situations, but there are some stipulations. We try really hard to make eye contact with each and every driver, make sure that they're stopping for us, make sure that they see us, that they know that we're there, and those types of things. So we do, and honestly, I get people that come to our class for that reason. They want to drive fast and make a lot of noise, and unfortunately, when they find out that we don't do that every time, we lose some of them because that's really the reason they're there. And it's not all the time. It's not every run that we go on that is like that.
For answering that question. I'm sure that would have come up from some students.
Yeah, it would. And when I'm doing this at the high school, I try to really make a point too of asking them to please, when they do see one of our ambulances or somebody running lights and sirens, please pull over and stop completely. That's really a challenge for us. We don't like doing it because as people pull over, they will pull over and continue to drive 50, 60 miles an hour. And we replace windshields so often that it's ridiculous because of that. When they pull over to the side and they continue driving at highway speeds, all that does is just pelt us with rocks and whatever other debris there is on the side of the road. And we go through windshields on a fairly regular basis because of that. Besides making it hard to see because of the dust clouds and the things that come up. So I really try to encourage them to do what they're supposed to do and pull over and stop on the sides of the road. So
I never actually thought of that. I always pull over and stop just because I thought that was the law, but I never thought about the fact
it
that
actually is, but people don't follow that very well.
Yeah. So I have one more question. I was thinking, so if they do their training here in the basin, would they have to, say they move to a different part of the state or even out of state, would they have to redo their training, or will that transfer wherever they go?
It actually transfers.
Okay.
This is something that we struggled with in the past. Utah actually accepted and adopted National Registry as the certifying body and formed a compact with other states. Not every state, but there's, I think, 18 now that are in the compact that if you are nationally registered as an EMT, all you are required to do to move into the other state is to fill out their application, basically, pay the fees. Some will require fingerprints again, some don't. Utah actually does. If somebody moves into the state from Texas or wherever, they will require them to get fingerprinted again and do the complete background checks. But that's really all that's required. If you move from, say, here to Delta, for instance, you would be able to go to work on their ambulance with the Utah license that you currently have. Anything else?
I can't think of anything else. I'll probably think of it later. But we sure appreciate you taking your time to meet with us. And like I said, we'll show the video to the students, and if we have any more questions, we'll definitely reach out to you. Jen, can you think of anything else?
I can't, but I sure appreciate you getting on. Even though we didn't have any students show up, I really appreciate you getting on.
That's fine. Like I said, I really enjoy doing this because I get to put us out there. It's one of those things. A lot of people don't realize that only until, well, it's almost 2 years now. EMS was not considered an essential service up until 2 years ago in the state of Utah. Fire, law enforcement were both considered essential. They're required by the county or the municipality to provide that service. But EMS wasn't. And it took us quite a bit of work to get there. We've actually formed in the state of Utah a rural EMS Directors Association of Utah is what it's called. And that took us a couple of years to get that finished and put together. And then we went to work on some of these things. And it's really been beneficial. We've done a lot of good things, and like I say, just any time that we can get the recognition out there for EMS, that's what we strive for. And so, and I'm kind of proud to say, and I don't know if proud is the right word, but I'm actually president of that association for the next 3 years. So it's really done a lot of good things throughout the state for rural Utah. So I'm excited about that. We've
That's
got some
awesome.
big changes coming that that are going to be really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wasn't aware of that, so congratulations.
Thank you.
That is really cool.
It has been. It's been a lot of fun. So,
Yeah. Well, again, we just really appreciate your time. This was really informative for me. I've learned a lot. I didn't really know much of anything that you told us about. So it was really good for me. So I sure appreciate you, and I think we'll go ahead and stop the recording and end the meeting, and but we will reach out if we have any more questions. All right.